Have you ever arrived at a crazy harbor or anchorage like this and been completely overwhelmed as you carefully motor around? You might have asked yourself why you would want to pick one place and method of securing your boat over another. For instance, why might you choose to tie your boat's stern to shore, like these boats here, versus choosing to swing free on your anchor, like this group? There's actually a lot that goes into that decision. In this video, we'll go over some of the many factors that might weigh into your consideration, the reasons you might consider stern tying, and we'll also walk you through a couple scenarios for preparing to stern tie, the steps required to get your boat secured, and then also how to safely and efficiently get your boat away from your stern tie configuration when departing the anchorage. The first consideration is safety for you and for your boat. Here's a similar anchorage. All of these boats are swinging freely on their single anchor deployed from the bow of their boat. As long as everyone has followed the guidelines for how much line or chain to put out with their anchor, they should all stay the same relative distance from one another as the wind or currents push their boats around. Still, they are very close together, and one anchoring mistake or fluky weather conditions could impact a bunch of boats. When we enter an anchorage like this, we start looking for alternatives to swinging on our anchor, since we typically don't like to put zeros in a situation like this. Here, too, we chose to stern tie. There's zeros over there. All of these boats along here have deployed an anchor off their bow and then backed towards shore, where they tied off one or more lines to rocks, trees, or other secure stationary items. They will move a little, mostly side to side, but if their lines are tight enough and the weather doesn't go crazy on them, they should all stay pretty much where they currently are. Now, say you took this number of boats and you made them all pick a place to swing free on their anchor. They simply couldn't fit in this harbor. To fit this number of boats in this space, some of them needed to stern tie close to one another and make sure they weren't swinging fully in a circle. So a couple other factors that you need to consider before you commit to stern tie. Think about the overnight weather forecast or for however long you intend to be there. If very strong side winds are forecast, this might not be your best option. Your equipment. What do you have to use to tie to a tree or a rock? Do current conditions allow for this maneuver? Will you be able to drop your anchor and back towards shore in the current wind conditions and the current boats that are there? Will your skipper be able to control the boat to allow the person taking the line ashore enough time to secure the line? If you have additional crew on board, you might be able to use an extra hand to make some of the execution easier.
We just got tied up in the town of Fiscardo. Got our stern lines all secured and helped Theo over here on his boat.
Let's look at the various scenarios where taking a line to shore would be a great option. To be able to tuck further into a cove to get out of the impact from wind, seas, and passing boat wakes. To keep your boat out of a harbor's channel. To fit more boats in a limited space. To create your own protected backyard swimming pool. To tie up close to a buddy boat, or a whole flotilla of buddy boats as shown here. To easily get to shore from the boat. You may have people on your boat who aren't as comfortable swimming. Okay, you've pulled into an anchorage and weighed your options. You have decided to stern tie. I'm going to use these two anchorages to walk you through the planning and execution steps. In this anchorage, we couldn't anchor in the middle and swing free because we would swing into either of the two sides. There just wasn't enough width in this channel. We needed to set our anchor on one side and tie off on the other. We checked the depth of water on both sides and picked this side to anchor on because it would be easier with the wind coming at us from this direction. We could also see enough rocks to tie to along here. We would deploy this line first. Getting the upwind line tied first is best because you have the most maneuverability at that time. Before we dropped our anchor, we did the following planning tasks. We prepared the anchor so it was ready to drop. hanging it over the bow. We lowered the swim platform so Tom could use this to take off from to swim the lines to shore. Tom got into his swimsuit with his snorkeling gear ready and on the swim platform. We got our 2 bags of stern lines out with the ends led through our fair leads and back to the swim platform so they would be ready to run free as Tom swam off with first one then the other. We would have our fenders out if we were going in next to another boat. Because Theo was going to be coming in next to us, we had our fenders out. We talked through our roles. Okay, ready? I would drive the bow toward where we planned to drop the anchor and do this in such a way that I was ready to reverse over to where we wanted to tie off the first line to. Tom would be on the bow to make sure to start the anchor drop so it would hit right where we wanted it to go. As I backed down, I would take over dropping the anchor from the helm, as we have a control back there as well. And I would continue deploying the anchor chain as he came back and got onto the swim platform and got ready to jump in the water. I would get back as far as I could, and when he was ready to go in the water, I'd put it into neutral long enough for him to jump in and swim clear of the boat. I would then put the engine back in reverse and try to continue working on setting the anchor. I'd watch the RPMs, I'd watch shore, make sure I wasn't getting too close, making sure that the anchor was holding. I might need to take in some anchor chain if I felt like I was too close to shore. If it wasn't holding, I'd have to abandon this approach and try it again. I would use our bow thruster to help pivot the stern toward windward to buy Tom enough time to tie off the line. I keep a keen eye on the line as it's in the water to make sure that it's nowhere near our stern. We usually use a floating line on the first line we tie to shore for this purpose. I don't want to get it stuck in our prop. As soon as I get the thumbs up from Tom, I will start to pull in the extra line and then I'll run it around a winch so I can get it very tight. I'll still have the engine in reverse, and by now the anchor should be well set, but keeping the engine in reverse helps me get this first line very tight. As Tom returns to the boat, I obviously put it back into neutral so he can climb aboard, or at least grab the second line, and then I see where the boat settles. So now 2 things are tight. One, the anchor's tight, the first line's tight, and he swims the second line to shore and ties that off as I again sort of watch how the boat is settling in. Again, as soon as I see the thumbs up from him, I take in the second line's slack and make sure that's pulled tight. In this particular case, this other boat is our friend Theo, so he just circled around and waited until our boat was settled, and then he dropped his anchor and backed down as Tom swam his lines to shore and tied them off. I was on our boat in case I needed to help fend off. This situation here is obviously a little bit trickier because you are backing down in between other boats. With no wind, it's pretty straightforward. With a cross breeze, obviously, it's more complicated. We follow the same steps, but we first make sure our fenders are out. The wind can quickly shift and blow you in either direction, so you really should be prepared. Also, Tom knows he needs to get the first line secure quickly, or I may need to abandon the attempt. I always have an escape plan in the back of my mind. In a scenario like this, I start reversing way before I plan to drop the anchor, so I make sure I have the boat well under control and heading at an angle that I want. I would probably start reversing right around here, and then I would drop the anchor about here. Because this is sand, I do not need Tom's help to start the anchor drop. I need him on the swim platform ready to jump in as soon as we get to about here. We do a quick neutral of the engine until he swims clear, and then I return to reverse and begin on having the anchor set, using the bow thruster to keep the boat at a safe angle with other boats. Because of the potential of a crosswind pushing me into another boat, I am 100% ready to take the slack out of the stern line the second I can. I am in hard reverse, and then I quickly tighten the line when I get the signal from Tom. So let's show you what this all looks like on the boat once we're all securely tied to shore.
So what we're doing with our stern lines is we're bringing them through this fair lead, through another closed fair lead, and it allows us to bring the line over here to the winch, and we can use the power of the winch to take up the line and tightness to the shore instead of having to pull by hand. This gets it super tight, and if there's a lot of extra line out, it actually speed things up as well. But one thing we started to do this summer is we take the lazy part of the line and we bring it back through this closed fair lead and back into the bag, storage bag. The reason for that is it allows us to be able to toss the line off of the winch, pull the extra line through here, and throw the whole bag overboard. If we have to make a fast exit, we don't want to have to be trying to deal with line and trying to feed all this extra line out through this fair lead and perhaps getting it caught somewhere as we're trying to make a fast exit because of maybe bad weather or a boat coming down on us. So we would just throw the whole bag overboard and we'd come back later and pick it up. Same thing is true over here, and this line is much longer. This is 80 meters of line, so it'd be a lot of line to feed through these fair leads to get it out of here. So we leave the bag here stored, stored but ready to go for when we're coming ashore, and we pull the end of the line out through here, and then I take it ashore, and then Karen pulls a loop of this line again through the fair lead down there, a loop of the line, brings it over here, wraps around the winch, so there's no extra line here. Again, all it has to do is just take the line off the winch, feed the loop back through here, take the whole bag, throw it overboard, and we can get out of there. So that allows us to exit quicker.
Okay, now we have to talk about getting out of a stern tie situation. This first example is the most common and straightforward. We have two lines tied to shore. The weather conditions are mild, and we are not very close to other boats, so this is not stressful, but it does show how we do it. We decide to take off the non-floating line first. Since the first line is the least risky, our boat will still be held nicely in place. I have the engine on, in neutral. Tom swims toward the tie-off point, and when he is ready to untie, I give him slack in the line until the knot is undone. Then I begin to pull in the rest of the line. He will swim in the big strap that was tied to the rock, and he'll put it on the swim platform, and then we'll move on to the second line. As soon as Tom has the knot undone, I pull in all of the line, and then I start raising the anchor. Tom has his fins on, so he will be able to catch up to the boat. When we slacken the second line, the boat will move forward because of the tension on the anchor. He'll toss the strap on board, climb on the swim ladder, and then start helping me raise the anchor. As I watch how we're doing on the nearby boats. In this particular situation, we're sitting fine next to the other boats, so this exit wasn't a stressful one. After the anchor is up, we lift the swim platform and put away all the lines and straps and prepare to be underway. Let's look at a couple other examples, and I'll point out the things we considered when getting out of each of these situations. Here's Ciro's. The wind is blowing from this direction. As a result of these crosswinds, both of our stern lines are pretty tight. When we release them, we'll immediately start to swing around, which will put our stern over here. We decided to take the shorter, tighter line off first to relieve some of the pressure. And keep in mind that it has to be released with care since it is under such extreme load. If I'm remembering correctly, I believe Tom used the dinghy to go untie the lines here. We had friends on board, so they helped pull in the lines as soon as Tom had them loose. As soon as we take tension off the second line, the boat lurches forward. I begin raising the anchor. Our stern starts swinging, but since I'm already minimizing the scope we have out, we'll be okay on these downwind boats. Tom returns to the boat with the dinghy, secures it at the stern, then goes to the bow to help raise the anchor the rest of the way. Okay, here's one more. This one was an interesting one. There are a bunch of shallow rocks in this anchorage, so we had to be in here a bit cockeyed. We have just one line tied to an underwater rock over here. Our anchor is over here. Throughout the night, the winds clocked all the way around, and we were held in place just fine. However, the wind was coming from this direction in the morning when we went to leave, so our exit was a bit tricky. If we took our stern line off first, then took our bow toward the anchor to raise it, The wind would push our stern too close to the shore. After talking through a couple options, we decided to let out more stern line, then motor forward to be able to take up on some of our anchor chain. Then we shifted a little bit more. We let out a little bit more stern line and took in more anchor chain. We continued to do this as we moved our bow toward where we would pull up the anchor. Then, still secured at our stern, the winds pushed us out to the deep center, and we easily retrieved our stern line. Having the skills to be able to tuck into such unique spaces really adds to the experience of the cruising lifestyle. We hope this information will help you gain the confidence to be able to do this yourselves. Please leave us a comment describing the special places you've discovered on this amazing planet. Thanks for watching. We're Karen and Tom living our Life 4.0, and we wish you happy sailing.